Well, hello Internet, and welcome to part 2 of my JavaScript video tutorial. In the previous tutorial, which if you didn't see, definitely watch it, and there's a link to it here on the screen, I covered pretty much every single thing there is to do with JavaScript as a core language, but I disregarded some things on the browser because I didn't want that video to be an hour long. Today I'm going to devote this video to handling events, and you can see here on the right side of the screen, you can see that this text is changing whenever I put the mouse over it. You can see I'm making paragraphs disappear and reappear based off of whether these are clicked or not. You can maybe see down here, I'm testing where the mouse is on the screen at all time, and also I'm checking for different key presses, as you can see here, and checking which mouse button is being clicked. Countless numbers of different things, all in one video tutorial. So let's just jump into it. And first off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some different things. I'm going to manipulate this brain that I have here on the screen. As you can see here, as this is being resized, the brain image is automatically changing as well. Maybe not in a pretty way, but that's not really the goal. The goal here is just to show you a bunch, pretty much every single event handler, and an example of a bunch of different ways you can manipulate said handlers. As you can see, all kinds of things are popping up on the screen. Okay, let's get into it. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to create a style for an H3 tag, and I'm just going to call it H3 style. Doesn't matter, just giving it a name, and I'm going to give it color gray. Boom, that's done. If you don't know what that is, watch my CSS tutorial. Basically what I did was I just said anything that's labeled with this ID right here should have the color gray. And now I'm going to move on here, and I'm going to show you some event handlers. Like for example, I'm putting this right inside of my body tag. I'm going to say on resize, right like that. So whenever the browser is resized, that's what that's saying. What I want it to do is call a function called change image. I'm going to put a semicolon in there, and just like that. And then on top of that, you can also put multiple different event handlers inside of here. Here I'm going to say on load. I want an alert box to pop up that says website loaded. A bunch of other requests I got were from you guys to do some inline JavaScript. Well, this is basically how you do that as well. So there you go. Those are two event handlers. This one's going to call change image, a function I'm going to create here in a second, and this one is going to pop an alert box on the screen whenever this is loaded. And of course you want to put a double quote here in the end. And actually, I'm going to show you. See how this pops up? Website loaded. Well, that's exactly what this guy does. Now I'm going to show you what some of these other guys do. I'm going to jump down here inside of the JavaScript coding area, and I'm going to show you what change image looks like. So I'm going to create a function, which you learned about in the last tutorial, and I'm going to call it change image, same as we got right here. It doesn't accept any parameters. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say document get element, and you do this all the time. In JavaScript, what we do is we tell the interpreter that we want to grab and manipulate different items on the web page based off of what their ID is. And this guy's name is going to be little brain, or the ID associated with it. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put dot style, and I'm going to say that I want to change the height of this graphic to 35% of whatever the current browser window is. So that's what that's doing. Document refers to the web page itself. Get element by ID, which is this brain right here that is called little brain. And I'm going to change the CSS style. That's what the style on here means. I'm going to specifically change the CSS property called height. And as the web page is resized, which is going to be called, because the on resize event is going to be triggered, I'm going to change the height as well as the width of the graphic on the screen. 1 second, you'll see exactly how this is done. And I'm also going to change the width by the same amount. Now this is going to cause some distortion, but that's not really a big deal. And then I want to end this with return true. And then I want to come down here and close the function. Okay, super. This guy's really actually almost done. So I'm actually going to jump down here where I have no script defined, and I'm going to create the image itself by calling image source is equal to, and I'm going to point at a graphic that I call littlebrain.ping, and here I'm going to give it a name. ID is equal to, see if you can guess what it's going to be called, little brain, right like that. And as you can see right here, that's the same thing here. So I'm creating an ID called little brain, and here I'm referencing that ID right there. And then I'm also going to give it some more event handlers. On click means when the mouse clicks it, it's going to call a function called alert me, which I'm going to create here in a minute. And another event handler that's available to you with JavaScript is double click. So on, and you can see it follows the same premise, starts off with on, and then on double click. Here, again, I'm going to do inline JavaScript, and what I'm saying here is that I want to call an alert box to pop on the screen and say, you double clicked. Right like that, close that off, and then / and close off the whole entire image tag. So now we're going to be able to go in here and mess around with these. I'm also going to create another thing called alert me. So function alert me, boink boink, no properties are passed to it. And then I'm going to say alert message is equal to document paying reference to the web page that is currently on the screen, little brain paying reference to the ID, which is right here. And I'm saying that I want to know what the source for it is, and the source is right here. Then what I'm going to do within this alert box that pops up, I'm also going to grab the current height for it, and I'm doing string concatenation here right now, document dot little brain dot height, and then just to make my life simple, I'm going to copy this, and here I'm going to say width, and I'm going to close that off with a semicolon, and I'm going to come in here and label that width as well. Okay, new line, width, da 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 da. So this is just creating a string that's going to be full of all this information. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot it out to screen. How I'm going to do that is to open an alert dialog box, and inside of that alert dialog box is going to be the string that I just created, return true. I'm going to close off that function. And just that little bit of coding that I just did right there, if we jump over here, you're going to be able to see what exactly that does. You can see right here, page at localhost says website loaded, so that opened up on the screen. And you can also see, as I resize this window, the brain is going to stretch. And automatically, no matter how many times I do this, it's going to continue to move around the screen. And also, if I click on it, double click, you double click, pops up on the screen. So, pretty cool. Some really neat little things we just did there. I'm going to show you how to capture mouse movements and countless other little things. Up here, I created h3 style, that class. So now I'm going to show you how to change automatically the color and the information inside of a web page on the fly. First, what I'm going to do, because I think this is less confusing, is I'm going to jump down here after the image and create an h3 tag, and I'm going to give it an ID equal to h3 style, which is the name of that CSS class that I created before, or ID. And then I'm going to assign some more event handlers. On, mouse, over. That means this is going to be triggered when the mouse goes over top of this series of words. I'm going to call a function I'm going to create called change color. Right like that. That's all you do. On, mouse, out, which is an event handler that is triggered whenever the person moves their mouse off of the image. And I'm going to call that change again. Maybe not the greatest names imaginable, but sort of doing this on the fly. Right like that. And I'm going to give it a name of rollover here in the beginning. And then I'm going to jump up here and I'm going to create the functions that I just typed in down here. So I'm going to create two functions. One's called change color and the other one's going to be called change again. Well, function, change color, nothing's going to be passed to it. I'm keeping this as simple as possible because actually what we're doing here is kind of complicated. So I'm paying reference to the web page and I'm saying get element by ID. And the ID I'm going to use this time is going to be h3 style, which I created in multiple different places here. Style dot color is equal to red. What I'm doing here is just changing the text color to red. That's it. But you could change it to anything. You could change any CSS property in this way. But what's really cool is I'm also going to change the text in there, paying reference to first child. You have to understand that everything inside of the web page is called a node. It's looked at as a node. We're going to get more into this later on. You can just consider a node a box. Remember, everything in CSS is a box from previous tutorials. And here, basically what I'm saying is that I want to change the text that is inside of the node for the h3 tag that's going to pop up here on the screen to the words excited. That's what this says. And this is all document get element by ID, first child, and node value. These are all JavaScript references. You'd use them over and over again if you ever want to change any text in any of these nodes or little boxes that contain information on the screen. Okay, so I'm going to create another one. I'm going to change again. Remember, function, change again. I'm going to create another function here in JavaScript. Try to keep this neat. Document. And just to save myself some time, I'm going to actually just copy this. So I'm come in here, document, and here I'm going to change the color back to gray. So when they move the mouse off, see, on mouse out, change again, it's going to call this function and it's going to say change the color back to gray. So that's what that does. And then on top of that, I'm actually going to change the text that is in this h3 tag again. So just let this be the same, except I'm going to type in bored. Jump down here, return true. That just means that everything worked fine with the function. That's all I'm doing with that. You can see again, this pops up because the page loads, but if you put the mouse over top of this text, it's changing to red, and it's also changing the text that is inside of that h3 tag. So that's how you do all of that. So what are we going to do now? We're going to jump down here after the h3 tag, and I'm going to show you how to create and manipulate and make visible and appear and disappear paragraphs. So I'm going to create a junk paragraph, and I'm going to give it the ID, which we need so that we can pay reference to it in our JavaScript code of first. This is a paragraph. And I'm going to copy this. I'm going to create 3 paragraphs, and I'm going to call this one second, and I'm going to call this one third. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a form. Scroll that up. And I'm going to give it a name of form EX. Also very important, if you want to pay reference to any form elements inside of JavaScript, you have to actually mention the name of the form that contains anything you want to manipulate. And here what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some checkboxes that are going to manipulate these paragraphs that I just created. So how do I create checkboxes? I type in type checkbox, and I'm going to have to give it a name. First para is the name I'm going to give it, and I'm going to say on click is equal to show para. And it's going to call the show para function right like that. Close off that tag, type in first paragraph. Okay, great. So that's just a checkbox that's going to call a function called show para whenever it is clicked on. And then I just have to come in here and change these names. I'm going to change this to second, this to third, second, third. Got to make sure I close my form. Keep that all nice and neat. And then I have to create what? This function called show para. Easy enough. Jump back up here where we have our JavaScript code. Define that we want to create a new function called show para. Make sure capitalization is the same. And then what am I going to do? Same thing again. Pay reference, get element by ID. And then the name of the element is going to be called first. And then I'm going to make it disappear by changing its visibility based on whether the checkbox is checked or not. So here I'm paying reference to the web page and then the form, which is called form X first, para, and I'm asking it if it is checked or not. And now I'm going to use a conditional operator here, which we talked about in the previous tutorial. And if it is checked, I'm going to say that I want the visibility to be set for visible. And if it's not checked, I'm going to say I want the visibility to be set for hidden. And then what am I going to do here? I'm just going to come in here and copy that guy. If you want any of this code, it's on the website, by the way. But chances are, if you were thinking that, you've probably already left. If you wonder why I do these tutorials so quick, it's because I get constant requests to make quick tutorials. It's what I do. Second, third, this can all stay the same. So based off of whether the checkbox is clicked on or not, designates whether the visibility of the paragraph is either visible or hidden. That's it. And then what do? I go return true. And of course I also want to come in here and change those to second and third. Reload. And then based off of which of these guys is checked, we'll designate which paragraphs show up on the screen. It's pretty crazy stuff. What I'm going to show you next is going to be more complicated and I need more room on my screen. So got to get rid of all this guy. And I'm going to create another guy inside of here. And it's going to be called text input, not really important. Then I'm going to come in here and create an HTML text box. Type text, obviously. Name is going to be equal to text input. And here I'm going to show you another event handler. It's going to be on blur. That just means whenever this text box loses focus, meaning that the person leaves the text box. I'm just going to open up another alert, and it's going to say on blur triggered. As I said, I wanted to show you as many of these guys as humanly possible. And I'm also going to trigger something else called on change, and this is going to open up another alert. And then I'm going to trigger another event called on focus and reload this. And you can see here, text input. Whenever I click on it, on focus is triggered. On focus is triggered again, over and over and over and over again. And that was planned. It's just pretty much to show you that whenever you're triggering on focus events and on blur events, that these shouldn't really be calling alert boxes nor being performed inline. They should actually be calling a function that has an end to it. And you can see here, the on change event was triggered whenever I typed in the D and then moved outside of there. And again on blur triggered because it lost the focus on the page. Now I'm going to show you some stuff that's really cool. I'm going to keep my little text box that I have right here. However, I'm going to give it a name, mouse X, and I'm going to get rid of this stuff. And this is going to constantly update on the screen as the mouse position changes. And if I have the X position of the mouse, I also should get the Y position for it, which I'm going to. And I'm going to put that on the screen also. So then I'm actually going to, because I need these text boxes to be created before I can start passing information to them, I'm actually going to put some JavaScript code down here after the form. So to make life a little bit easier, I'm going to copy this guy right here. Doink. Okay. So let's come down into the script area. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you a way to check which browser you're using, because Microsoft Internet Explorer works differently than all of the other ones. So we're going to say navigator.app name is equal to Microsoft Internet Explorer. This basically just checks. It asks the browser specifically, are you Microsoft Internet Explorer? And if it is, it comes back true. Otherwise, it comes back false. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say, if you wonderful browser, if you are not Microsoft Internet Explorer, I love you. And I'm going to make your life real easy. And I'm going to come in here, document. And again, this is a JavaScript function, not something I created. I'm going to say that I want all of the events in relation to mouse movement, which is event mouse move, to be passed to the document so that I am alerted whenever they occur. And there's a whole bunch of these guys. I'm going to also say that I want to capture all events in regards to the mouse button being pressed down. And I'm actually going to show these guys later on. But these are just the events. That's all they are. These are the event names in uppercase letters preceded with event dot. That's all it is. You can do this and capture all of the different events in this very specific way. Okay, so that's what I'm doing. I'm saying I want these events passed to me. I want to handle them. And then what I'm going to do, I want to say if the mouse is moved, I want that event passed to a function that I'm going to create called mouse POS, or mouse position. And I'm actually going to come in here and also say on mouse down. So whenever the mouse button is pressed down, I want you to call a function called mouse clicked, which I'm also going to create. And then I'm going to come in here and just give these mouse click is equal to 0. Just going to 0 these guys out. And also var key clicked is equal to 0. And var mouse X is equal to 0. I'm just creating empty variable names here that I'm going to be using. Consider a good practice to create them before you use them. Alright, so what do I need to do here? I need to create a function called mouse POS, and I need to create another function called mouse clicked. Let's do it. Function mouse POS. Again, this is going to be a function. It's not going to be passed any parameters. Then I'm going to say if you are not Microsoft Internet Explorer, mouse X should be equal to E, which is a reference to the event in non-Microsoft Internet Explorer browsers, so anything but. And right like that, I'm going to change them on the fly. So whenever the mouse is moved, this event is going to be sent to my document, and it's going to call mouse POS, this function. That event's going to be handled from there. The event information that occurred, or the mouse movement, is going to be passed to this function right here. And then I'm going to change the value of the variable for mouse X and mouse Y using this event here. And you can see those two variables are right there. So on the fly, I'm going to be changing these guys as they move. Really cool and useful. Else, if you are Microsoft Internet Explorer, mouse X is equal to, and this is how you pay reference to events in Microsoft Internet Explorer. Body.scroll left. So instead of this nice short thing, you got this wild absolute mess right here. Mouse Y, light Y, and then just change this to scroll top. So that's how you monitor mouse movements using Internet Explorer and everybody else. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to call the document or the web page, and on the fly as I do this, I'm going to change the value of the text box called mouse X to the value of mouse X, or this guy right here. It's very cool that this just works like this. Now I just come in here, change this to Y, and change this to Y. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to return true, right like that. So you can see I'm doing pretty complicated things, extremely easy. And you can see here, mouse X and mouse E, or mouse Y. One little error here. In function mouse POS, I want to make sure I put an E inside of there right there. That's the event being passed. That's it. And then if we jump over here and reload, you can see that my mouse X and Y positions are being tracked as they move around on the screen. Okay, so I'm going to create my last two little guys here so that we'll also be able to track mouse clicks as well as keyboard clicks. And I just have to make a couple little changes, meaning mainly that I got to come in here and create a couple more text boxes. So I'm going to come in here, copy that, paste. Going to change the name of this to key press because I'm going to monitor any keyboard presses. And then I'm going to come in here, change the name of this to mouse button. And this is going to monitor any mouse clicks and act accordingly. Okay. And that's all I need to change there. And then go back down to my JavaScript code and I'm going to have to come in here. I'm going to monitor any mouse down events, right like that. I'm going to call mouse clicked if the mouse buttons are pressed, or I'm going to call mouse POS if the mouse is moved. And I'm also on mouse down, meaning the mouse is clicked. I'm going to call the function called mouse clicked. And now I just have to create these different functions. That's it. So if I want to monitor key presses, I got to create a function called key pressed. And don't repeat the error that I made before. I want to make sure I take E, I accept E into this function, which is the event itself and all the information in regards to that event. And then I'm going to say if you are Internet Explorer, E is going to be equal to window event, key clicked is going to be equal to E key code. Else, if you are not, every key on the keyboard has a number that's associated with it. And I'm going to show you how to change it from a simple number into the actual code itself. Key clicked, how you would do that is by calling string from character code. This is a function inside of JavaScript. What it does is it turns character codes into the actual character itself. That's what that does. And then I'm going to say if key not clicked, turn false. And that's just saying that it didn't work. Document dot form ex dot key press dot value. This is a reference to the text box called key press and the value stored in it. And I'm going to give it whatever the value of key clicked is, which is going to be the character that they clicked on the keyboard. And if we got here, everything worked out, and we can close it. Now I'm going to create the last function that we need here. And this is going to handle if the mouse is clicked. Again, pass it the event code if you are the evil Microsoft Internet Explorer. And here, just to change it up, I'm going to call switch statement. And any keys on the mouse that are pressed in Internet Explorer are referred to as event.button. In case it was a 0, then I want to change the value stored in the text box called mouse button to the value equal to left, meaning the left mouse button was clicked on. And if 1 is passed, that means the middle mouse button is clicked on. Otherwise, we're actually just going to say default and just say the right mouse button was clicked on. Else, if they're not using Internet Explorer, what we're going to do is just copy this whole entire switch statement, paste. And if you're not using Internet Explorer, the way that you reference the event is e.which. And here the number is going to be 1. This is different between everybody except Microsoft Explorer. Everything else is exactly the same. Just have to change that to 1 and that to 2. Just how they differ. Change that to true, end that, and then end that guy. And if I reload it, you can see it's not only tracking the mouse positions, but it's also on the fly, capturing anything that I click on the keyboard, as well as any mouse clicks that I make here on the screen. Alright, so that's pretty much every single event inside of JavaScript, except for a couple. And I disregarded these because I personally don't use them all the time. You might, I don't know. The other event handlers, just so you know, are on abort, and that is called when a page load is interrupted. On error is called whenever a page error occurs. On key down is called whenever the key is pressed but not yet released. On key up is called whenever a key is pressed and released. On mouse up is used whenever you want to track whether the mouse has been released. On reset, called whenever reset button is clicked. On submit, which is almost identical, is called whenever the submit button is clicked. And on unload is called whenever somebody tries to leave the web page. So there is pretty much everything you ever wanted to know about event handling inside of JavaScript. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. Otherwise, till next time.